Hey guys, how's it going? Today I wanted to talk a bit about the difference between having gender dysphoria and being a trans person. Now, I do think that this video will be a little bit controversial, and some of the things that I have to say, I think people in the trans community might not fully agree with. But I do think that there are some valid distinctions to make and some ways that I disagree with the general perspective of the trans community for the most part. So, what's the difference between being trans and having gender dysphoria? Sorry if I'm just jumping right into this, but you read the title, so. Gender dysphoria is not a way of life. Gender dysphoria is a mental condition. It is the discomfort that is born out of some kind of incongruence in your personal sense of identity and your bodily characteristics. The DSM-5 specifically lists it as a discomfort caused by incongruence of self-identity and the primary and secondary sex characteristics primarily. That's not a way of life. That is simply a condition that some people find themselves in. Now, when faced with a condition like this, you have to consider the question of treatment. How do we go about treating this incongruence, this discomfort? There are many different ways of thinking about that problem. One way of thinking about that problem is what I call transgenderism. Now, this is a bit of a controversial topic because many people in the trans community, and I think rightly agree, I agree with, will say that being transgender is not an ism. It's not, transgenderism isn't a thing. What I mean by this specifically, to be clear, is not that being a trans person is like a disease or something, but the ideology, the way of thinking about treating gender dysphoria, or the way of thinking about the relationship between gender and sex, or body and identity, things like that, all of those philosophies or theologies in some cases are an ideology. It's a way of thinking about the particular problem. Being transgender falls into that kind of category. A category relating to the way we think about the problem of treating gender dysphoria. Now, this has formed a very broad and wide and very in-depth community and even its own culture. The people in that community recognize that there is no one correct way of being a trans person, but there are many things that they generally agree on, right? They generally agree on a philosophy and metaphysic that defines personal identity based off of personal awareness and mental state, for example. That is one place that the Catholic Church has notably clashed a bit. Now, I do think that this is totally a topic for another video, but I do think there are places where we agree, where there's actually a really good commonality between the ideologies held by transgender people in the trans community and the Catholic Church. And I think the Catholic Church's position is a lot more ambiguous in a lot of ways than people think. But again, this is a whole topic for another video. My point now is that there is an ideology, there is a kind of belief system that surrounds or is present within the trans community. And you don't have to agree with those things, whether it be the way you treat gender dysphoria, whether it be any more broad speaking metaphysical claims, things like that. You don't have to agree with those things, even if you have gender dysphoria. You could disagree with what is the appropriate method of treating gender dysphoria. I don't know what those methods are. That is not the point of this video. I'm not going to talk about what is the appropriate method of treating gender dysphoria. But that you can have a separation between this identity as a transgender person and somebody who wishes to treat their gender dysphoria. This is somewhere that obviously the Catholic Church and this community does disagree. So it seems to be clear to me, and I think I made my point clear, in that you can have gender dysphoria and not be trans. And you can have gender dysphoria and not know how to treat it. As it turns out, the research that has gone into treating gender dysphoria as a mental issue is very limited, which is one of the major reasons that the Catholic Church and church leadership is very hesitant to jump on any particular treatment method. Is that helpful? No. Is that a symptom that is going to be present anytime that there is a relatively new disorder or illness or biological treatment method, anything like that, and or at least like new language on it, new communications on it, right? And there's very few studies. The Catholic Church is historically very slow and very cautious with the things that we bring up, the things that we incorporate into our way of life, or what our morality, our ethic. That is all. That has always been very slow, and that is something that I personally, as a Catholic person with gender dysphoria, struggle with, and am trying to work on, and trying to help the church discover and grow in a way that we can understand. Like, hey, there are people out here, like myself, who genuinely struggle with this mental issue and are looking for help. My doctor said something that made a lot of sense to me, like something I already understood but really agreed with, is being transgender is not a mental disorder. Gender dysphoria is. The issues caused by an incongruence between our personal identity and our actual expressed life, that disconnect causes problems and can be classified as a mental disorder. But being a transgender person is not a mental disorder. That is a chosen way of life. And the Catholic Church is also a chosen way of life. So what we as Catholics need to recognize is, one, that these trans people have chosen a way of life based off of a desire to be healed and be healthy and be happy, which are all good things. And that the Catholic Church herself is very slow and very much looking to find a way that we can treat gender dysphoria as a mental health disorder, as an issue, as a problem that people face, and live our lives faithfully as Catholics. And this is something we're always very slow on, but we're working on it. I am trying to work on building a community of Catholics here. So if you have dysphoria, if you don't, if you have friends, anything like that, please send them my way if you're interested. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about that today. Hey guys, thank you for watching this one today. It's kind of a clunky end there, but if you liked it, please do give it a like. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, please throw it in the comments box. I do try to read every single comment, and I try to respond to every comment that I can. Sometimes I'll even make a video to respond to it because the questions can be a little more in depth. Excuse me. If you would like to see more of my content, do please hit the subscribe button. That way I will show up in your feed every time I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching. God bless.